President Trump is playing down the current trade standoff with China and playing up prospects of a deal. The two nations have fired off new salvos of tariffs on billions of dollars in goods. But Mr. Trump insisted today that his relationship with China's President Xi is, quote, extraordinary. And he insisted the trade negotiations have not collapsed.
We're having a little squabble with China because we've been treated very unfairly for many, many decades, for actually a long time. We are, again, in a very, very strong position. If they want to make a deal, it could absolutely happen.
U.S. trade officials today published a list of another $300 billion worth of Chinese goods that could be targeted. Beijing, in turn, vowed to fight to the finish. Leaders in the U.S. and Iran appeared today to try to ease rising tensions in that part of the world. State TV quoted Grand Ayatollah Ali Khamenei as saying this is not a military confrontation because no war is going to happen. And President Trump dismissed a New York Times report that the U.S. might send 120,000 troops to the Middle East if Iran attacks. We'll delve into all of this right after the news summary. The president's son, Donald Trump Jr., will testify before the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee related to the Russia investigation. The committee had subpoenaed him, but a number of reports now say that the two sides reached a deal today. Meanwhile, it's also reported that U.S. Attorney General William Barr has appointed a federal prosecutor to review the origins of the probe into Russian interference in 2016. U.S. Attorney John Durham in Connecticut will focus on whether surveillance of the Trump campaign was proper. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo carried a warning today to Russia over intruding in U.S. elections. Meeting in Sochi, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov again denied interfering in the 2016 presidential campaign. Pompeo pointed to potential trouble in 2 years.
Made clear to Foreign Minister Lavrov, as we've made clear for the past months, that interference in American elections is unacceptable. If the Russians were to engage in that in 2020, it would put our relationship in an even worse place than it has been, and encourage them not to do that, that we would not tolerate that.
Pompeo also met with President Vladimir Putin, who welcomed the results of the Mueller report. He said it showed there was no collusion between Russian officials and the Trump campaign. The governor of Florida says that Russian hackers broke into voter databases in 2 of the state's counties before the 2016 election. Ron DeSantis spoke today after a briefing by the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. He said the hackers did not compromise the election results. In a statement later, the FBI confirmed that assessment. Montana Governor Steve Bullock has joined the 2020 Democratic presidential field. The 53-year-old Bullock announced today he cast himself as a centrist who can win in states like Montana that President Trump carried in 2016. He joins a packed field of 22 Democratic candidates. In the Philippines, it appears that President Rodrigo Duterte's allies have won big in this week's midterm elections. Unofficial results show them taking half of the seats in the Philippines Senate, where opponents have blocked some of Duterte's policies. The vote was seen as a referendum on Duterte's violent anti-drug crackdown and his embrace of China. Back in this country, Wall Street rebounded a bit from Monday's sell-off. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 207 points to close at 25,532. The Nasdaq rose 87, and the S&P 500 added 22. And 2 passings of note. Longtime American economist Alice Rivlin died today of cancer. She was a founder of the Congressional Budget Office and later the first woman to serve as White House Budget Director and as Deputy Chair of the Federal Reserve. She was a longtime champion of reining in the federal debt, as on the NewsHour in 2012.
We can't fix the long-run problem of the deficit by just cutting spending, and we can't fix it by just raising taxes. We've got to do some of each, but in a gradual way over time and in a much more intelligent way.
Alice Rivlin was 88 years old. And comedian Tim Conway died today in Los Angeles. He got his first break as a bumbling World War II ensign on TV's McHale's Navy in the 1960s. Then came a long stint on The Carol Burnett Show that earned him 4 Emmy Awards. In later years, he voiced Barnacle Boy on the SpongeBob SquarePants series. Tim Conway was 85. Still to come on the NewsHour, tensions rise in the Persian Gulf as the U.S. blames Iran for damaged oil tankers. The rise of Chinese cell phone giant Huawei causes security concerns. Labor union leader James Hoffa declares his support for President Trump's tariffs on Chinese imports, and much more.